12 spine-chilling tales from my cursed farm that are too sinister to forget. Megan had heard the whispers, but nothing could prepare her for the real horror. The worn-out farmhouse, once the haven of her childhood dreams, loomed ominously against the autumn sky. It was a far cry from the bustling city life she had clawed to escape. She envisioned fresh starts as she clasped her children's hands, Jamie and Lily, but now she felt a chill run down her spine. The air was thick with an unshakable dread. The golden leaves fluttered on the wind like ghosts beckoning her towards the past. Upon stepping foot on the farm, she sensed something was off. The neighbors rolled in with tight-lipped smiles that didn't quite meet their eyes, their half-hearted suggestions only coating the truth with a sugar-filled veneer. "You'll love it here," they said, while their eyes screamed otherwise. Children from town hovered at the edges, tossing glances and murmurs her way, tales of the farm's dark legacy that made her stomach churn. One afternoon, sunlight barely penetrated through the cracks in the barn as she unearthed remnants of her grandparents' lives. Her fingers brushed against brittle pages of an ancient journal, and a hint of panic crept in as she read cryptic warnings about the land's hunger. It warned of a malevolent force that gnawed at her very soul, tied to a pact made long ago. Dismissing it as ramblings, her skepticism soon faded, giving way to an unfolding nightmare. Fences snapped like toothpicks, her once budding garden withered before her eyes, and shadows danced just outside her field of view. Then the terror morphed. Jamie and Lily fell ill one night, tossing and turning, cries churning Megan's stomach. Their voices morphed into an eerie song that echoed through the chill of the night. Fear gripped her like an iron vice. Rushing through the dark to Hank's house felt wrong. He greeted her with unsettling calmness. "It's what the land does, you know." His smile a chilling reminder that she was not entirely alone in her suffering. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Nights cloaked in darkness warped into something terrifying. Wails from the nearby woods penetrated the veil of calm, summoning her children away. Morning light arrived like a death knell. Where were Jamie and Lily? Heart racing, panic coursed through her body. The house felt larger, emptier, shadows stretching into the corners, taunting hazy figures just behind the drapes. Megan retraced her frantic steps, pulling back forgotten memories of the journal and Hank's cryptic remarks. What evil had she unleashed? Her instinct screamed that her family was in peril. Underneath the surface of idyllic rural life lay horrors that gripped her soul. A rustle came, and her name hung in the air, an echo of her children calling out from somewhere deep in the woods. Goosebumps prickled her skin, and she stood, teetering on the edge of a dreadful decision, one that would plunge her deeper into the abyss of her family's sinister history. The land had a taste for blood, and Megan stood right in its path. As she bolted toward the dark embrace of the trees, the question hung heavy. Would she emerge with her children, or become another whisper on the cursed farm? The moment Megan plunged into the woods, darkness closed in around her like a suffocating shroud. Every snap of a twig echoed, amplifying the silence, filled only by her frantic breathing. "Jamie! Lily!" she called, her voice trembling, swallowed by the shadows. The trees stood like ancient sentinels, their branches twisting into gnarled hands, reaching for her as if to pull her deeper into their dark embrace. Every few steps she paused, listening intently for any sign of her children. Soft laughter, playful shouts, or even the eerie song from before. The chill in the air intensified. It was as if the forest itself was aware of her fear, feeding off it, wrapping it around her like a vine that tightened with every heartbeat. "Megan," a voice drifted through the leaves, soft and melodic, yet it sent shivers racing down her spine. She turned sharply, feeling eyes watching her from the deep underbrush. Was it her imagination, or did the trees sway ever so slightly, urging her forward? "Mommy, help!" The cry was faint but real, and it propelled her forward through the tangled undergrowth, branches tearing at her clothes and skin. "Stay close!" she screamed, panic boiling within her. She could feel the darkness closing in, as if it had its own heartbeat, pulsating with every desperate stride. A clearing emerged, revealing an old well, the stones slick with moss and darkness pooling at the bottom. The children's voices melded with the eerie whispers of the wind, circling like a haunting melody. She crept forward, drawn by the siren call emanating from the depths. "Jamie! Lily!" Clutching her chest, she leaned over the well, peering into the black abyss. The smell of damp earth and decay wafted up, sickening and unsettling. "Help us, Mommy," the voices chimed again, clearer this time, harmonizing in that strange, creepy tune. Tears stung her eyes as she strained to see, the weight of dread anchoring her heart. This wasn't right. Suddenly, heavy silence blanketed the clearing. Her heart plummeted. What do you want?" she yelled, her voice cracking, terror clawing at her throat. With each word, a gust of wind whipped around her, cruel laughter echoing back from the trees, haunting her. Shadows shifted and danced, weaving stories of pain and torment. Another rustle broke through, just behind her. She whirled around, breathless, dread pooling in her stomach. A figure emerged from the shadows. Hank. His face was twisted in a look of grim satisfaction, eyes glistening with something dark and unfathomable. "You shouldn't have come here, Megan," he said, his tone deceptively calm. "The land has chosen you." "What do you mean?" she gasped, instinctively stepping back. But there was nowhere to go. The trees loomed, encircling her. "Tell me where my children are." Hank took a step forward, and the ground beneath her felt unstable, like it was shifting and quaking. "The sacrifice must be made," he murmured, a sinister edge creeping into his voice. "You're here now, just like the others." Panic surged as realization crashed over her like cold water. "Others?" she echoed, eyes wide with fear. "Yes, the past always comes calling. You're part of a legacy, a cycle that won't break." Before she could process his words, the branches around her quivered violently, and the laughter escalated into a frenzy. "Megan!" It was Jamie's voice now, desperate and close. In a moment of pure instinct, she lunged for the well, its darkness throbbing around her like a heartbeat. "Hold on! I'm coming!" But as she reached the edge, the ground gave way, and everything slipped from her grasp. As she fell, one question circled endlessly in her mind. What price would she pay to save her children from the land that hungered for them? And then there was only darkness. What would she encounter in the depths? Would the truth of the land's insatiable hunger swallow her whole? Megan plunged into the abyss, the cold grasp of darkness tightening around her like a vice. She fell, a scream clawing its way up her throat, only to be muted by the oppressive blackness. The world above faded, the distant whispers of her children swallowed by the void. She felt as if she was dropping through time itself, a freefall into nightmares steeped in ancient dread. Then, with a dull thud, she landed on a damp earthen floor. The air was thick with the stench of rot and decay. She lay still for a moment, trying to catch her breath, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. A faint glow flickered nearby, illuminating the contours of the chamber. A small, crumbling stone room, damp and unwelcoming. "Mommy?" The voice was muffled but unmistakable. It was Jamie. Megan scrambled to her feet, her fingers brushing against the cold, wet walls as she stumbled toward the sound. "Jamie! Lily!" she called into the dimness, desperation clawing at her insides. The darkness felt alive. It murmured and rustled, as if it were alive, eager for her to succumb to fear. "Over here!" Jamie's voice rang out again, now tinged with urgency. The glow grew brighter, guiding her like a beacon through the shadowy space. She moved toward it, her pulse racing, the walls closing in around her. As she stepped into the light, her breath caught in her throat. It was an underground chamber, lined with twisted roots and eerie symbols carved into the stone. A chill ran through her when she noticed the drawings. Frantic lines depicting figures, faces distorted in agony, all encircling a single massive tree entwined in shadow. Beneath that tree lay the roots, thick and gnarled, reaching deep, inexorably into the earth. "Mommy!" A figure emerged from the shadows, small and fragile, yet filled with a haunting presence. It was Jamie, his face smeared with dirt and tears, eyes wide with fear. But behind him stood another, cloaked in darkness, a shape shifting and writhing as if it were siphoning the very essence from the children around it. "Run!" Megan screamed instinctively rushing toward Jamie as she felt the pull of the malevolent presence behind them. But the darkness surged forward, tendrils of shadow snapping like whips, elongating toward them. Megan lunged to grab Jamie's arm. She turned back to face the silhouette, the darkness spilling into the room, the whispers rising louder, words like daggers slicing through her resolve. "Sacrifice! The land demands a sacrifice!" "No!" she shouted, feeling her heart race as she brandished her arms instinctively. "I won't let you take him!" A chill crept over her, a cold so fierce it felt like a blade against her skin. Then, with eerie clarity, she felt the pulse of the roots beneath her feet, and as they surged, the symbols on the walls glowed brighter, darkness recoiling. "Mommy, I'm scared!" Jamie cried, clutching her tighter. Megan's mind raced. The land had chosen them, but she wouldn't bow to its demand. She wouldn't leave her children behind. But she couldn't fight it without knowing the truth. What were these root-bound secrets? "Stay close," she warned, dragging Jamie swiftly toward a corridor that had appeared in the eerie glow. The oppressive whispers were growing louder, clawing at her sanity. But there was no escape. The path twisted and turned, each bend an invitation into deeper darkness. Every step echoed with the weight of ancient secrets, building suspense like a coiled spring ready to snap. Then came the harsh laughter. It rang out all around them, reverberating off the damp walls. Faces appeared in the stone, screaming silently, nameless, lost souls, those who had come before her. With every rush of panic, every frantic breath, Megan realized the truth. She was not just trying to save her children. She had to confront the very darkness that sought to consume them all. A fork in the path loomed before her, shadows flanking either side, thick with uncertainty. The laughter grew louder, a twisted serenade mocking her. To the left, the shadows flickered. To the right, an unbearable silence beckoned. Megan's heart fought to maintain its rhythm. She had to choose. But which way led to freedom, and which would pull them deeper into the land's hungering grasp? In that moment of choice, terror surged anew. What unseen horrors awaited beyond those darkened paths? Would she be able to reclaim her children, or would the forest's call drown them all? Megan's breath came in quick gasps, her heart pounding as if it wanted to escape through her chest. The laughter twisted around her, a grotesque symphony that layered despair over her already frayed nerves. She looked left, then right, her mind racing. Jamie tugged at her, watching her with wide, terrified eyes. "Mommy, please, don't make me." His voice faded, drowned out by the cacophony that ensnared them. The darkness thickened and shifted. With a glance toward the left, Megan could see more shapes writhing just outside the glow. They were silhouettes of twisted figures, their forms contorted in ways that made her stomach churn. Sweat trickled down her back, a reminder that they were alive, and whatever watched from the shadows threatened their very existence. "Mommy, please," Jamie pleaded again, and she felt his grip tighten. The right path loomed ominously quiet, almost mocking. The silence was deafening, an empty void that seemed to swallow all sound, and she could almost hear the pulsing roots beneath her feet echoing with malevolence. Doubt clashed with instinct. Was the silence a ruse, or was that path the sanctuary they desperately needed? "Let's go left!" Megan shouted, spurred by a sudden surge of adrenaline. Courage surged through her veins, ignited by the sight of the sinister shadows pressing in from all sides. They ran, fast as they could, Jamie's smaller legs struggling to keep pace. The laughing grew distant, but never faded. It seemed to follow them, mocking their every desperate step. Behind them, the blackness surged, a great beast hungry for their warmth. The corridor twisted impossibly, roots groping out from the walls, brushing against her arms in a way that sent chills racing along her skin. "Mommy!" Jamie cried, nearly tripping as he stumbled. She grabbed his hand, pulling him closer, fear mounting as she could feel the darkness drawing nearer. In a sudden moment of clarity, she felt the weight of the world pressing on her chest. This wasn't just about escape anymore. She had to confront this evil head on. It was going to claim them if they didn't fight back. Then they emerged into a larger space, an ancient amphitheater carved into the very heart of the underground labyrinth. The flickering glow illuminated a centerpiece that made her stomach drop. A stone altar, stained and cracked, surrounded by the very symbols she'd seen earlier. Dark blood etched the stone. It reflected the light with a dull gleam, as if it had absorbed countless sacrifices. "Jamie, stay behind me," she commanded, fear wrapping around her like a cold shroud as she stepped closer, drawn closer to the truth behind that altar. As she approached, the laughter intensified, morphing into something grotesque, a twisted opera of torment. The shadows danced eagerly around the altar, writhing in delight, whispering promises of power and despair in a voice that was both alluring and terrifying. "What do you want from us?" Megan shouted into the depths, her voice shaking. Silence. The laughter faded to a low hum, the darkness around her stilling, waiting, watching. Then, as if answering her call, the roots began to twitch and lash out, snaking across the stone floor like angry serpents, slithering toward her. "Megan!" A whisper echoed through the chamber, a breath of wind carrying a familiar voice. Her heart sank as she recognized it. The timbre was hauntingly twisted, but unmistakable. "Mommy? Lily? No, no!" Megan's voice rose in panic as fear gripped her heart. Was her daughter truly here, or was this another cruel trick of the shadows? The laughter returned, stronger this time, filling the cavern with a sinister energy. "Make your choice, Megan," the voice taunted. The shadows surged forward, clawing and snapping, whispering of blood and sacrifice. Desperation clawed at Megan as she struggled to hold on to Jamie's hand, squeezing it tighter. The weight of decisions loomed, and she felt the ground beneath shift, her awareness becoming razor-sharp. The echoes of cries of those lost surrounded her. What was she willing to sacrifice to get her children back? The shadows cackled again, their voices merging into one chilling harmony, wrapping around her like a shroud. What will you do next? Will you heed the forest's call? As the darkness pressed in, Megan felt the walls closing in on her, a weighted blanket of despair. And in that moment, the choice to save her children grew heavier than ever. The altar pulsed with a crimson glow, radiating unholy power. The path ahead brightened, yet the shadows behind eagerly awaited her answer. Would she succumb to the land's demands, or could she sever their bond to the darkness that wanted them? Terror tightened its grip, and Megan took a breath, preparing to make her choice. She knew a sacrifice was required. She just didn't know whose blood would seal the fate of her family. Heavy silence fell as she stood at the crossroads of dread. Which choice would she make, and what terror awaited at the end of it? The silhouette of the altar loomed larger, drawing Megan in, but a flicker of resistance stirred in her heart. The whispers intensified, clawing at her resolve, brushing against her psyche like icy fingers. "Make your choice," they echoed, a haunting chorus that sent tremors through her bones. "Jamie, stay close," she breathed, her voice a hoarse whisper, as she felt the shadows pressing around them. Each pulse from the altar sent a wave of heat throughout her body, and a part of her skirted the edge of wanting to reach out, to embrace that power. What if it could save them? What if it meant redemption? But the thought quickly chilled her. Every story she had heard about the forest's darkness flooded her mind, each tale of sacrifice and damnation. It was a trick, surely, nothing more than a web spun to ensnare her. But her attention was pulled back to Jamie, wide-eyed and trembling, his small form almost swallowed by the walls of dark. "Mommy, I'm scared," he whimpered, and the innocence of his fear cut through her like glass. "Megan!" The tortured voice of her daughter twisted through the air again, lingering and desperate. "You have to choose, Mommy." "Lily?" She felt her breathing hitch, fear clawing at her throat. "Is that really you?" The delirium of hope and despair warred for dominance in her heart. "Yes, help me," the whisper drew out, resonating with same chilling familiarity, but Megan felt the pull of deception lurking in each word. The shadows surged closer, fueled by her hesitation. Horrific faces formed in the darkness, eyes glinting with malice, mouths twisted into grins that weren't smiles. Each one mocked her anguish, each one beckoned her forward with a sinister promise of power and despair, growing louder, drowning her in their melody of terror. Megan's heart raced, and in the dim light she saw unnatural shapes weave through the shadows, their limbs elongated, grotesquely wriggling as if alive. The ground beneath her began to thrumming, as if it sought to trap them in its cold embrace. "Make your choice, Megan," they taunted again, and the air crackled with a frenzied energy. "What do you want?" Megan shouted, summoning what strength remained. A startling silence followed, thick and stifling. The spectral faces danced, their mocking eyes flickering with dark excitement. "Your will, your sacrifice." With a shudder, Megan realized the cost was blood, not just hers, but the lives she held dear. A sickening wave of despair crashed over her. Hadn't she vowed to protect her children, no matter the cost? Yet here she was, teetering on the brink, and in her gut she knew she had to choose. "Megan!" Jamie's voice cut through her malaise, high and echoed with a desperate urgency. She turned to him, his face drenched with fear, and in that moment, clarity pierced through the chaos. No sacrifice, no deal. "Jamie," she cried, grabbing his little face between her trembling hands. "No matter what happens, I will not let them take you." Just then, the shadows recoiled, forming an immense maw, threatening to swallow her whole. The laughter halted. A palpable tension hung in the abyss. "Then neither will you escape, Megan," the dark voice retorted, growing stronger. And with that, the altar burst open, sending a wave of crimson light cascading across the stone chamber. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, reaching for her, pulsating with fury at her defiance. She felt Jamie's hand slip from hers as she shot forward, adrenaline pumping. "Run!" she screamed, but the shadows were faster, consuming space around her. Suddenly, a scream echoed from deeper within the dark, and something worse than the shadows stirred. Megan turned instinctively, feeling dread wash over her at the thought of her children trapped here. But her children weren't the only ones they were after. She had made her choice. And now, the true horror had begun. Out of the shadows, something massive shifted. A low rumble shook the ground, a growl that reverberated through her bones. What was coming next? What form would their terror take? As dread met an endless unknown, Megan's heart raced. Was the sacrifice hers to make, her life for their safety? Or was there a greater horror lurking behind the veil of darkness, waiting for the moment she would finally break? The shadows twisted and curled, growing denser, more aggressive. A deep growl emanated from the dark mass, sending vibrations shooting through Megan's feet into her core. She turned toward the source, breath hitching, heart thrumming in her chest like a desperate drum. Jamie's terrified eyes locked onto hers, begging for safety, for an answer that felt increasingly impossible to provide. "Mommy, it's coming," he whispered, nearly choking on his fear. Megan grabbed his small hand, clinging to it as if it could anchor them both to reality. But an unrelenting force pulled at them, a magnetic draw that threatened to unravel her determination. She pulled Jamie closer, feeling the warmth of his body, his pulse racing against her palm. In the suffocating darkness, she couldn't let go. She wouldn't let go. The shadow surged again, swelling and shifting, becoming a more tangible threat. Within it, a pair of eyes glowed, eerie and bright, a piercing yellow that radiated hunger and malice. The eyes locked onto her with a predatory intensity, sending a frigid wave of terror sweeping through her. "Leave us alone!" Megan shouted, defiance mingling with dread. They echoed her words back to her, mocking in their twisted cadence. "Alone? You are never alone," the shadows hissed. "You belong to us now, Megan. This is your truth." A sickening sensation rose in her gut. Part of her felt trapped, pulled by the ever-tightening grip of the darkness, while another part threatened to shatter her composure. The voice of her daughter, still lingering in her mind, resonated. "Help me, help me." Did that plea carry an unmistakable command, or merely a lament? Megan tore her gaze from the glowing eyes, glancing around, searching for an escape. Behind her, the altar throbbed with life, a pulsating heart amidst the chaos. She wondered if power surged within its ancient stones, a weapon to wield against the growing menace, or if it simply entrapped her further in the curse of the forest. "Mommy, please," Jamie cried, his grip tightening around her fingers. "I can't let go." The growl rippled again, closer now, and Megan felt herself shudder as icy tendrils brushed against her skin. "Stay close," she screamed, feeling every inch the darkness creep past her waning defenses. Was she even leading Jamie to safety, or sealing their fates within the maw of this terror? Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and from the murk emerged a monstrous form. Thick fur matted with dirt and ichor, dripping from fanged jaws that opened to reveal a cavernous mouth lined with jagged teeth. The creature's body twisted grotesquely, large enough to engulf them both. "This is your doing," it bellowed, its voice like thunder, drowning out the whispers that clawed around them. "You chose to come. Your fate is already sealed." Megan's resolve faltered. "I didn't choose any of this," she gasped, air catching in her throat, heart racing like a sprinting bird trapped in a cage. "Oh, but you did," the beast chuckled deeply, mocking her fear. "In every hesitation, in every choice you made to remain here." The ground around her felt like it was opening up, ready to swallow her whole. The shadows seemed to laugh, closing in to form a dark audience encircling the monstrous apparition, hungry for the impending chaos. Just when she thought all hope was lost, a flare of light exploded from the altar, illuminating the darkness like a lightning strike amidst a storm. Shadows recoiled, hissing like startled serpents. Megan dared to look back at the altar, now burning with an unholy red glow. "Jamie, we can do this!" she shouted, tempting courage to rise, even as fear hung thick in the air. Will the altar's power save them, or drown them deeper in despair? A moment of hope flared in her chest, but as the light flickered away, Megan felt stronger, the darkness twitching, retreating just slightly. But they were not safe yet, not by a long shot. She glanced at Jamie, determination igniting in her eyes. "We have to fight back, baby. We can't just give in." Before she could finish, the creature lunged, jaws snapping inches from her face. Megan stumbled backward, dragging Jamie with her, desperately searching for a way out, all the while aware that something darker still lurked on the horizon of possibility, waiting for the moment she dropped her guard. What could possibly save them now? Was there a deeper connection to uncover, or was the greatest horror yet to come? The moment felt infinite, a suspended breath in the space between life and death. Megan's heart raced faster than the pounding of the ground beneath them. She yanked Jamie away just in time as the creature's massive jaws snapped, sending a wave of rancid breath washing over them, thick with decay and bitterness. "Run!" she screamed, yanking Jamie toward the altar, desperate for the light that flickered precariously at its base. They could feel the cold tendrils of darkness chasing them, wrapping around their legs like serpents, pulling them back. The old stones pulsed a sinister red, threading shadows through the air, erratic flashes contracting and billowing. "What do we do?" Jamie's voice cracked, fear bubbling over, pulling at her resolve. "Trust me," Megan cried, pulling him toward the altar. The shadows slithered closer, scraping against her skin like icy claws. She could feel them, churning and restless, alive with hunger. In that moment, a wild idea took shape. Megan held on to Jamie's hand tightly, channeling every ounce of her love and fear into their grip. "If the altar has power," she whispered, "then maybe we can use it." "What about the monster?" Jamie protested. "The monster feeds on fear and darkness. If we can bring the light—" Another growl rumbled like thunder across the clearing, shaking the air around them. The creature lunged again, but this time Megan stood firm, her heart charged with a raw, almost primal determination. "Come on!" she shouted. Clutching the words tightly, she urged Jamie. They hastily approached the altar. As they neared, the pulsing glow intensified, drawing her in, promising hope amidst despair. "Help us!" Megan cried, fueled by the last remnants of her courage, her voice mingling with the distant echoes of everything she ever wanted to protect. Suddenly, the altar erupted. A beam of light shot upward into the sky, tearing through the blanket of darkness. The shadows shrieked, recoiling violently from the radiant force that pierced their shroud. The air crackled, electrified with the thrill of radiant chaos. "Mommy, look out!" Jamie shrieked, pulling Megan back just in time to evade the creature's ferocious swing. Massive claws scraped the stone, sending chips flying in every direction. The light flickered, wavering under the immense pressure of the shadows, and for a second, everything felt on the edge of collapse. "Keep it steady, Jamie," Megan exhaled, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She focused on the light, feeling it respond to her energy, her fear melting under its heat, transforming into something potent and fierce. The altar pulsed harder, and with it, so did the shadows. They writhed in fury, but Megan pushed against their grip, urging the light. "You're not taking us!" With every ounce of strength, she latched onto the warmth of Jamie's small hand. The shadows roared, their whispers growing desperate. The air thickened, a soundless scream echoed through the forest. And then the light flared in intensity, pushing the darkness away, revealing glimpses of twisted figures trapped within, watching with hollow eyes. The remnants of those who had come before. Megan's breath caught in her throat. What are they?" "Mom!" Jamie cried, his eyes darting anxiously around them. But the power from the altar surged, forcing the shadows back, drawing back the monstrous creature. A last howl of anger pierced the night, as though the darkness itself was splintering into shards. "Quick, closer to the light!" Megan shouted, urging Jamie forward, praying that they could banish the fate threatening to claim them. Yet, even as they pressed towards salvation, a figure emerged from the shadows, silhouetted against the light. A face she recognized, eyes glinting with a familiar fear. "Megan?" it whispered, a desperate plea. "Mom!" A chill wrapped around Megan, clamping tight as Jamie's frantic shout splintered her thoughts. The figure drew closer. Was it friend or foe? Could this be the answer to their desperate plea for safety, or the key to their destruction? With the shadows retreating, but the mystery deepening, the climactic choice loomed before them, hanging in the perilous balance of light and dark. What now? Megan's voice was barely more than a gasp, but the night held its breath, waiting, ready to burst into chaos once again. "Megan, please!" The figure inched closer, desperation etched into every line of her face. As recognition washed over her, Megan felt the warmth of hope flicker, but that hope was tinged with a heavy, suffocating fear. The shadows hissed, tightening their grip around Jamie's tiny form. "What are you doing here?" Megan's voice trembled, more incredulous than angry. She hadn't seen her mother in years, not since that fateful summer night. The memories were haunting, wrapped in guilt and loss, like the shadows now encircling them. "Megan, you have to listen. There's no time to explain." Her mother's voice was strained. "The light, it's your only chance. They are drawn to you, to both of you. It's why I'm here." "What do you mean? We shouldn't have come here," Jamie whimpered, looking from Megan to the ghostly face of his grandmother. "They're coming," the figure whispered, her gaze flicking toward the encroaching darkness, a wave of sorrows crashing over her. "You must trust the altar. It can protect you from the darkness wanting to claim your souls." "No!" Jamie shouted, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I don't want to. I want to go home." Megan felt the piercing weight of Jamie's despair. "We can't go home until we fix this." Wiping her own tears, she turned to her mother, trying to keep the panic from her voice. "How do we get rid of it?" "The altar is a conduit. You must call upon the memories of love, the light that drives the darkness back. Only then can the sacrifice be made." Sacrifice! The word echoed ominously in Megan's mind. What kind of sacrifice? Her mother's silhouette darkened as a shadow quivered behind her. You have to face what you fear the most. The creature feeds off the confusion and pain. It will take every ounce of your strength to protect Jamie." A thunderous roar erupted from the darkness, forcing Megan and Jamie to step back, the light trembling in response. The monster seemed to swell, a dark mass full of unfathomable rage. Claws extended, firing forth like arrows, threatening to tear apart their fragile hope. "Now!" Megan shouted, her voice cutting through the gathering storm of fear. She clutched Jamie closer, channeling all her grief, all the love she felt for her and her mother, mixing it with the fierce determination to survive. The altar responded, bathing them in an otherworldly glow. The air thickened with light and darkness, a swirling maelstrom of raw emotion. "Remember, what do you love?" Megan shouted, grasping at anything to fortify their defenses. "I love you, Mommy," Jamie cried out, his little voice breaking yet vibrant with the truth of their bond. "I love you, Grandma." The shadows recoiled, their howls mingling in a cacophony of fury. The altar pulsed like a heartbeat. For a moment, it seemed that light won against darkness. But then the creature lunged again. "More!" Megan shouted as the shadows crashed down like tidal waves. "Bring it all!" "Take the pain," her mother's voice echoed, clear and severe. "Accept the loss and use it." Megan squeezed her eyes shut, memories flooding forth. Laughter in the backyard, fragile family moments torn apart, the heart-wrenching night her mother had vanished. All that love and loss coalesced into a blazing fire within her. "Let it burn," she proclaimed, to herself and the shadows closing in. The light flared brighter, a sudden eruption of energy that shattered the darkness around them. Shadows twisted, screaming in anguish. But something was still wrong. Cracks formed in the fabric of the light, shadows creeping back in relentlessly. Just then, she felt Jamie's grip slipping. "Mommy!" Jamie cried, the terror in his voice reverberating through her. "Megan!" Her mother's voice faded as the shadows surged, twisted figures reaching out, their hollow eyes forcing Megan to confront the impossible truth. This wasn't just about her. Jamie was caught in the grip of darkness too. "No! I won't let you take him!" But the shadows shrieked, roaring in laughter, as the altar quivered under their onslaught. Falling apart, Megan saw the truth laid bare before her. Mounted against the creature, their combined love might not be enough. Not now. "Jamie, hold on!" she shouted, flooding her voice with every shred of courage she could muster. In that instant, she saw the scene shift. The altar quaking was nothing compared to the depths of despair beneath them, reaching up like 1,000 ghosts hungry for revenge. Curled tendrils of darkness lunged forward, tugging at Jamie, who was now terrified, eyes wide as saucers. "Mommy, the dark! I can't hold it!" he cried out, a whimper threatening to fracture Megan's heart completely. In that moment, clarity pierced through the chaos. Her next step could either shatter them apart or bind them tighter. What was she willing to sacrifice? Time stilled as Megan faced the shadows swirling voraciously around them, and below, beneath the altar, the truth beckoned. Would that sacrifice be the very thing that tore them apart? As the figures of the lost reached out, Megan had no idea how close they were to tearing through the fragile barrier of light threatening to remain. Now or never. What must she do to protect Jamie? As darkness beckoned for her with its insatiable hunger, Megan felt the freezing grip of fear wrapping around her heart once more. Megan felt the shadows tugging at her soul, a cold claw of despair wrapping around her heart. Jamie's small body trembled against hers, his breath coming in quick, panicked gasps as he fought against the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. "Hold on, Jamie!" Her words echoed in the chaos, but the darkness hungrily consumed them, each breath drawing the shadows closer. The altar pulsed ominously, a beacon flickering under pressure. Megan's mind raced, zigzagging through fragments of light and memories, days spent. Jamie, their laughter mixing with sunlight, the warmth of her mother's embrace before it all fell apart. But was it enough? Was their love strong enough to push back the tide of despair? "Mommy, what do we do?" Jamie's voice cracked, raw and pleading, cutting through her frantic thoughts. Megan's heart sank. How could she explain this? How could she find a way out when everything around them felt as insurmountable as the walls of darkness closing in? It was as if every shadow was alive, whispering their fears, feeding on their vulnerabilities. Megan took a shaky breath, wishing for clarity. Sacrifice. The word hung in the air, morbid and heavy. In her mind, she roared against the notion. Would she have to give Jamie up? The mere thought made her throat constrict. Deep down, however, another part of her whispered that perhaps it was her own fear she must confront, the fear that had haunted her for years. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, sending vibrations through her bones. With every pulse, snippets of memories emerged, forcing themselves into her consciousness. "You're nothing without me," a voice taunted, dark and familiar, wrapping around her like the very shadows they fought against. "Stop it! This isn't real!" Megan screamed, but the shadows just laughed, a cacophony of tortured souls, dragging her further into despair. She had to fight back, not just for Jamie, but for herself. "Jamie, focus on the light!" Megan shouted, desperately trying to cut through the darkness encroaching on their world. The altar vibrated, glimmering with an ethereal glow. Yet something lurked below, a dark void where the anger of long-buried memories boiled. With sudden clarity, Megan realized the memories must be faced, not just summoned. Pain and fear twisted around her as she pulled a deep breath, forcing the truth to the surface. "You abandoned me! You left me alone!" The shadows shrieked, recoiling temporarily from the rawness in her voice. Jamie's wide eyes met hers, confusion warring with comprehension. "Mommy, don't!" "Listen, we have to confront it together," Megan pressed, her grip on him tightening as shadows coiled around his small frame. "Think of all the love we've shared. Fight with me, Jamie. Remember our joy." A flicker of light erupted from the altar, responding to their shared determination. Jamie's voice broke through, quaking yet resolute. "I love you, Mommy, and I remember all our happy times." "Push it back," Megan encouraged, her heart racing as she felt the surge of energy flow, igniting the room with vibrant light. Slowly, the laughter of the shadows turned to howls, anguished and furious at being repelled. But the darkness was relentless. It swept forward, clawing at the edges of their sanctuary, now a feeble glow against the tide of despair. "Mommy, I'm scared!" Jamie shouted, his small voice trembling as the shadows tugged at him, threatening to pull him away. "No, no!" Megan shouted, feeling panic bubble to the surface. "Stay with me, Jamie. Don't look away." She gripped the altar, summoning the strength within her, dragging forth every ounce of courage she possessed. In that moment, she realized the truth. It wasn't just Jamie's light she needed, it was also her own. Drawing from the depths of sorrow, Megan allowed the love she felt to envelop her entirely. "I am not afraid. I won't let you take him." As if responding to her battle cry, an explosion of light erupted from the altar, encasing them in a protective cocoon. The darkness twisted painfully against the glow, screeching in fury as it clawed at the barrier. But just as relief washed over her, the ground lurched again, and Jamie's terrified scream pierced through her heart. The light's flicker faltered once more, flickering stubbornly, threatening to shatter under the weight of the shadows pressing closer. And just when she thought they might make it, the creature loomed, larger and more grotesque than ever. Towering over them, it reached. Megan's heart stopped. What was she willing to sacrifice to keep Jamie safe? The question hovered like a knife, each beat swinging towards desolation. In the depths of that shadowy abyss, she suddenly understood. Was there a fate worse than death itself? As she turned to face the darkness, praying the light would hold, Megan's resolve solidified. They were not simply fighting to survive, they were fighting for hope. Would hope be enough? Would they make it out alive? Or would chosen sacrifices seal their fate? The shadows howled with rage, swirling around Megan and Jamie, hungry and relentless. Just as Megan thought she grasped the fragile strands of hope, the creature lunged again, its jaws snapping with a speed that left no time to hesitate. Time seemed to stretch as fear flooded her system. She forced herself to act. "Hold on tight," she yelled, tugging Jamie's small body against hers. She felt the weight of his fear pressing down on her, and that gave her the strength she needed. "We're not giving in." The altar pulsed again, a vast surge of energy thrumming through the air. With renewed determination, they sprinted toward it, the darkness closing in like a torrential wave. "Think of the light," she shouted, her voice unwavering against the grip of despair. "Think of each happy moment, Jamie. We can push it away." As though responding to their combined memories, the altar erupted in a golden blaze, illuminating the damp, dark confines surrounding them. The shadows recoiled, furious, fighting back against the light that threatened to purge them. "Mommy, please!" Jamie's voice trembled as he pressed closer, sensing the danger. "I'm scared." "I know, baby," Megan shouted, pulling him closer still. "But we have each other. We have love. Let's fight back together." In that moment, everything blurred. The shadows, the cries, and the deep-seated fears began to fade as memories swirled around them like a warm blanket. They passed through her mind, moments spent under the sunlight, shared laughter, and the comfort of family. Each cherished memory solidified her resolve, fueling the light erupting from the altar. "Remember the treehouse?" she called out, torn between panic and clarity. "The stories we made up together?" Jamie's face brightened momentarily, his eyes narrowing on the altar's glow. "I remember!" he shouted, fueling a wave of energy within her. "Yes, and the time we painted the fence in bright colors? The way we promised to make this farm a special place?" Before long, the shadows creaked and twisted, drawn into the whirlpool of their love. The fight became a dance, a resistance against encroaching darkness. Megan felt a radiant glow emanate from Jamie, intertwining with hers. "That's it, Jamie. Keep it alive. Don't close your eyes," she encouraged, feeling her heart pound. Its echo reverberated through her body, feeding life into the altar. But the creature inched forward, shadows slashing through the air, dark teeth snapping in an attempt to silence them. Megan felt the cold grip of despair threatening to engulf them, and yet she surged ahead, her voice rising above everything. "You'll never take us!" Just then, Jamie squeezed back. "You're my light, Mommy, and Grandma too!" With a fierce cry, a beam of blinding light shot forth from the altar as the darkness recoiled in agony, revealing ghostly figures trapped within its depths, shadows of the cursed past connected to that hungry land. Megan could see their faces now, twisted in pain, begging to be free, but she couldn't linger too long. "The love we share breaks the curse," Megan screamed. "It's what they never had." As that realization held her, the roots of the past, the ties that woven them into the shadows, began to break apart. The figures howled, turning into wisps, sucked back into the oblivion. She felt their grief and regret. No more would they steal the light from her family. Then, with every ounce of strength, Megan leaned into the brightness, feeling the power of love engulf her. It felt instant and raw, brushing against the darkness's relentless grip. "You don't own us! We are free!" The shadows shrieked. Suddenly, a split appeared in the darkness, wide enough to lead them to freedom, but it flickered with uncertainty. Megan squeezed Jamie's hand tighter, her determination surging. "Go, Jamie, run!" she urged, her heart at war with the haunting darkness still crawling at their heels. "Mommy, please!" His innocence painted the air with desperation. "I'm right behind you! Trust me!" she shouted, forcing movement. They dashed through the split as the shadows clawed and writhed in fury, the creature all but disappearing in the chaos they had incited. The light pulsed and surged, tearing through the shadows like a blade through the night. As they ran, Megan could feel the shadows clawing for her, each one a whisper of what she feared losing. But she refused to falter. With every step, she commanded light. Emerging from the chaos into a serene clearing, the sun broke through the trees above. Fresh air cleansed them, and Megan collapsed onto the grass, feeling the warmth of freedom radiating through her. "Jamie!" She frantically pulled herself up, searching for her son. Relief flooded through her as she spotted him, standing at the edge of the clearing, eyes wide and shining with tears. "I'm here!" he exclaimed, running toward her. She enveloped him in her arms, and together they crumpled to the ground, gasping for breath, fractured yet safe. As they clung to one another, Megan turned, gazing back at the forest's edge. The darkness lay beyond, but the trees seemed to shimmer, their whispers muted. No longer a curse, but an echo fading into the past. "Mommy, we did it," Jamie whispered against her shoulder, exhaustion lacing his voice. "Yes, we did," she breathed, tears mingling with a smile of triumph. "Together." And with that, as they lay beneath the warm glow of the sun, a subtle breeze carried away the darkness like a defeated specter, leaving nothing but peace in its wake. They would carry on, free of fear, forever intertwined in love. They had faced the abyss and emerged victorious. Don't let this ending slip away. You need to subscribe now to catch our next spine-chilling tales as they unfold. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and make sure everyone sees this wild journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what lies ahead. It's your time to shine. And for the love of all things scary, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who can handle this tale of terror. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.